Hello and welcome to the programme which looks at the Holy Land. I am Paul Calvert. Psalm 95 verse 2 from the New King James Bible says this: "Let us come before his presence with thanksgiving. Let us shout joyfully to him with psalms." I'm with British Consul General Diane Corner, and we're in Jerusalem, so it's important to be celebrating the Queens Platinum Jubilee here, isn't it, Diane?
It is indeed. It's 70 years since Her Majesty came to the throne, and British embassies and posts around the world, the British representatives are celebrating and hosting Queen's birthday parties, and that's what we're doing here today in Jerusalem. It's a very special day because Queen Elizabeth II is the longest reigning British monarch. She is the first monarch to celebrate a Platinum Jubilee, which is 70 years on the throne. So Her Majesty came to the throne of Britain in 1952, which is a very long time ago. Most people have only ever known the Queen as their queen. Most people in Britain have only ever known the Queen as their monarch.
Mm-hmm. What special events are you going to be doing here in Jerusalem?
Well, we have a Queen's birthday party here in Jerusalem, and we have invited our friends and partners, diplomats, representatives of religious institutions, so the churches in all their denominations, plus representatives of the Muslim faith. We have Jewish people here, Jewish friends as well, and so it's a great gathering together, plus of course diplomats, other diplomats and representatives of NGOs and other institutions that we work with, and it's a great gathering together in the garden of the Consulate General in Jerusalem, and it's decorated with bunting, with flags, and with some traditional symbols of the UK. So we have a telephone box, and we also have a soldier, a traditional soldier in the traditional beefeater uniform, and a sentry box in the garden at the Consulate General.
Now there are big celebrations in the UK. Today has been Trooping of the Colour. Is it a good time to come together after difficult times with Brexit and COVID?
I think so. I mean, it's been a very difficult 2 years with the COVID, with the lockdowns, with the suffering and the loss that many people have felt, and also, missing big events, parties, gatherings, families coming together, holidays, all the traditional ways in which people come together and celebrate. So today, I think, is a very special day. We've got a lot of celebrations in the centre of London. I was watching earlier today the Trooping of the Colour, the members of the royal family together. Her Majesty the Queen appeared on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, of course. And then over this weekend, the celebrations are going to continue, and it's a tradition to have gatherings, parties, and particularly street parties in the UK. And I know for a fact that the weather is going to be really good this weekend, so that's great.
That's amazing. And of course, there must be a hint of sadness as well for the Queen too, with the passing of Prince Philip as well.
Indeed, as we all know, the Queen and Prince Philip were married for a very long time, and indeed his loss will be keenly felt, I'm sure. But the Queen is surrounded by her family, her sons, her daughter, and also their grandchildren and great-grandchildren too, and other members of the family. And so it's a very important time for her family as well to all come together.
Is the Queen very much loved in the UK?
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness, yes. And I think it's on occasions like this that you realise just how important the royal family is within Britain. You see, there are people out on the Mall. There are huge crowds in London today. I was listening to the television earlier. There was somebody who had been sleeping in front of Buckingham Palace since about 2:00 this morning. Wow. And that's not unusual, and it's real dedication. Yeah. So, I mean, there is huge affection for the Queen and for the role that she plays. She really is a symbol of the country.
Have you personally met the Queen?
I have indeed,
wow.
Yes. I've met her twice, actually. I met her, I've been an ambassador twice before, and I met her before I went to Tanzania. I met her in Buckingham Palace, and I met her before I went to Congo, where I was also ambassador, and I met her then at Windsor Castle, and it was a real pleasure. It was extraordinarily interesting meeting her, because I was, you realise just how much she knows. I was talking to her about Tanzania, and she was talking about Nyerere, who was the first president of Tanzania, because she had personally known him. And then I was talking to her about Congo, which is not a Commonwealth country, and it's not a country that I would ordinarily expect her to know much about. Not many people do. But she was extraordinarily well informed. And so she was very interesting to talk to, really. You know, we had a great conversation.
Of course, she's had many prime ministers, including Winston Churchill as well, hasn't she?
Indeed. I think Winston Churchill was her first prime minister. And yes, and, you know, there was a great interview, actually, with John Major, who was one of her many I think it was 14 prime ministers that she's had during her reign. And John Major was talking about the wisdom that he found in her conversations with her. He was talking on the television last night, and he said, you know, I very often wish that she was another member of my cabinet and that she could advise the other ministers. So, you know, she's obviously been a very important influence on prime ministers throughout the ages.
And of course, she became queen at a very young age. Was it a surprise to her to become queen so early?
I think it probably was. You know, obviously when she was a child, a very small child, she wasn't expected to become queen because it was her uncle who became Edward VIII, who was king. And it was only with his abdication that her father became king. And so, you know, she was then thrust into the line of succession, if you like. And so, yeah, she became queen at age 25, extraordinarily young, but she carried herself with great dignity, and she clearly had a very profound sense of duty. And you can see that, I think, in the film of the coronation, this great sense of the importance of the role that she was playing, and she's carried that role ever since with this very strong sense of duty.
Now, we've had royal visitors here in the Holy Land with Prince Charles and Prince William. Is it the consulate that prepares for a royal visit?
It is indeed, and, you know, there's a lot of preparation that goes into a royal visit, as you can imagine. You know, a lot of minute timings for every single little event and transport programs, and exactly who's going to stand where and who they're going to meet, and, you know, what they're going to eat and what they need to wear and whether they need to bring gifts, etc. So there's a huge amount of planning that goes into it. But a royal visit is like no other. And, you know, I always think that the royal family, I've seen it elsewhere, that the royal family can kind of reach parts that other people cannot meet. They have this impact, which is really profound in the people that they meet. And I think it's because they don't come with a particular political agenda, but they come and they do represent the UK, and they are such well-known people that I think that, you know, and they are so good at what they do as well, that I think people really appreciate meeting them.
Now we're here in Jerusalem, the city where Jesus ministered and was crucified. Does the Queen have a strong faith?
Indeed. She is the head of the Church of England, and she is a regular churchgoer, and she speaks often about her faith and the importance of faith. And, I think in much of her work she embodies Christian values, and she certainly, I think, seeks to impart them to others around her. Yes, indeed.
Of course, even in the Christmas message, she's talking about her faith as well, isn't she?
Indeed, yes, and that Christmas message is very important to her, and it's listened to by millions around the world, of course.
Now, you've been all over the world. What made you want to become British Consul General here in Jerusalem?
I mean, Jerusalem is a city like no other. It is a universal city. It is a city which is central to three of the great faiths around the world, to Christianity, to Judaism, and to Islam as well. And it is a fascinating mix. And of course, it sits, I suppose, on a fault line, if you like, in the conflict between Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. And so the task of the Consul General here in Jerusalem is to work on that conflict. We specifically focus on the occupied Palestinian territories, but we work very closely with the embassy in Tel Aviv, the embassy to Israel, and we are seeking to address that conflict together, and we are seeking to create the space for a two-state solution, which would see a peaceful Israeli state and peaceful Palestinian state, both sovereign nations living side by side with this city, Jerusalem, as a shared capital. That is the aim of British policy here.
Is it an honour and a privilege to be in this post?
Oh my goodness, yes. It is extraordinary. I mean, I can't actually remember how many postings I've had, But this is like nothing else. And it is extraordinary what the job comprises. One day I can be down in Gaza. The next I'm attending a Latin mass with, the faith communities here. The next I'm, traveling to see some of the development projects that we're doing. And then I'll be, liaising with other donors, with the United Nations, for example. And so it's an incredibly varied job. And it's a beautiful part of the world to be working. Extraordinary privilege.
What sort of programs do you do as the British Consul General here?
My goodness, where do I start? And a major part of our programme is to support UNRWA, which is the UN agency which looks after Palestinian refugees. They have a major role to play down in Gaza and in the West Bank, but also throughout the region. There are significant refugee populations in Jordan, in Lebanon and in Syria too. We also work on development issues with the Palestinian Authority, and we also work to try to remove some of the barriers to trade between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. That's an important part of our work as well. The occupied Palestinian territories are still very much a developing country, a less developed country if you look at the GDP per capita. So we're trying to improve the economy. There's a lot of development issues in there as well, particularly humanitarian assistance down in Gaza, where population is especially badly affected by issues around being able to get in and out of Gaza, low employment and other humanitarian issues. So that's really important as well. And then we're also, engaging to try to preserve the prospects of a two-state solution, to try to preserve Palestinian presence throughout the occupied territories, throughout in East Jerusalem as well, in places where Palestinian ownership of land or property might be under threat. That's also an important part of what we do here. As I say, our aim is ultimately to preserve the space for a two-state solution, because we want to see two states living peacefully side by side.
What is your hope and your prayer for the future of Jerusalem?
Well, I think it is just that, actually. It is that one day there will be a two-state solution, and that the Jewish people and the Israelis may be able to live in peace and security, which they crave, and also that the Palestinians too may have their own sovereign state, and that the two states may live together side by side in peace and harmony. And, that's another part of our programme as well, to really try to foster those intercommunal links between communities in Israel and communities in Palestinian territories, and to really foster understanding between them, and hopefully, to break down some of the barriers and build that trust, which is really at the centre of a peaceful future for both countries.
Okay, Diane Corner, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Pray that God will move by his mighty power in the Holy Land and bring his peace.